And that's what I'm saying, Sammy. I think people are sort of enjoying an opportunity to sit here and talk fantasy football. And I know everything that's coming out on my channel typically is Bears related, and we talk Bears stuff, and we'll talk some Bears tight ends this afternoon. But it's a good opportunity to go out there and talk some fantasy football. And just to let everybody know that, as we start getting closer to the season, we're going to start talking a little bit of fantasy more regularly. And what I would like to do is similar to what we're doing here. Now, I know that I haven't been great about answering the questions, but over the next couple of weeks, we'll start doing some more of these. We're going to pick a day, possibly Monday. We'll see. I'm actually negotiating with Sammy and Anella right now. They don't know. They're back there being like, Rank's signing us up for Monday. Who knows? But we got to do this because I think it's a lot of fun and it's been enjoyable for me, and it helps me in my own fantasy preparation to do all this stuff. So without further ado, Sammy, let's just go ahead and start the show.
Welcome to our Fantasy Island.
Welcome to Fantasy Island as we wrap up our positional preview. Laquan Jones has been with us all week. If he has an opportunity to join us, he'll step in with us, but still wanted to go out there. And this has been appointment viewing. You guys have been great. We appreciate everybody being here. And again, we'll start diving a little bit deeper. We've been looking at some of the bigger names. And I feel like a lot of times whenever you go out and consume fantasy content, and I know this from the NFL fantasy standpoint, is like, we don't get to talk the big stars because everybody just assumes that, oh, nobody cares because, well, to draft Brock Bowers. Like, obviously you do, but where do you draft him is the biggest question out there, Sammy. And just take a look at that. It's going to be real simple. Tier 1 is exactly what you expect it to be. It's Brock Bowers and Trey McBride, and that's the tier. That is the only thing. And I know that a lot of you play, and again, this is a point that I've been repeating over and over again, is that always know your scoring system. Kurt Henning's son, Joe Henning, always hits me up every year for fantasy advice. The league that he's in, it has weighted scoring for the tight ends. Tight end touchdowns are worth 8, which really would have been a pain in the butt last year if you had Trey McBride, because we were sitting there hoping that Trey McBride was finally going to break through at some point. Didn't work out, but that's okay. What we do like is that Trey McBride gets a lot of targets. So let's talk about this real quick. And as a strategy for me, what to do with the tight end. Now, a couple of years ago, we started firing, and I remember it was the Antonio Brown and Travis Kelce was how a lot of people were starting their drafts. And then people continued to be holdouts of drafting Travis Kelce year after year, like first round, because the drop-off is so significant. We haven't seen the drop-off be as significant as it was a couple of years ago when Travis Kelce was out there scoring, 360 fantasy points. The next closest guy, like he was close. He was further away from 2 than 2 was from 19, something ridiculous like that. And so we haven't really seen Brock Bowers reach that status yet, but it's getting pretty close, because when you look at the Raiders, and I like Jacoby Myers and I like what they've done with Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers is still going to be their most targeted player on the offense. So for me, I'm not going to fire in on Brock Bowers in the first round. I understand what a lot of you are thinking, but I think at the same time that we're starting to put ourselves into a situation where we're overthinking this, because if we do miss out on Brock Bowers, there's an opportunity to get Trey McBride. His lack of touchdowns last season should actually help out, because a lot of people will be like, well, I'm not going there. He doesn't catch touchdowns. He's going to regress to the mean. He's going to get closer to 8 touchdowns this season. He's always a possibility for double-digit touchdowns. Like, as easy as it was for him to go, 13, 14 weeks without a touchdown, he could easily go on a tear where he has double-digit touchdowns this season. So I really don't believe that he's a player to avoid or anything like that. However, because he is there, I'm comfortable not taking Brock Bowers in the first round. As a matter of fact, if you've been watching the last couple of episodes, if you want to go back and listen to some of the strategies that we're laying out for you, it's probably not in your best interest to draft a tight end in the first 2 rounds. If Brock Bowers is there in the 3rd round, I will let you know, even if I don't have a running back. If I've started with Malik Neighbors and Drake London is probably not a great example. Let's say Malik Neighbors and another great wide receiver, where you're in a spot in round 3 where you would normally be looking for a running back. I would actually take Brock Bowers there. I would think Trey McBride, maybe, depending on the running backs who are off the board, depending on if we're starting 3 receivers or 2. Third round is where I'm starting to look at these guys. And if they're like, hey, I want to make sure that I've locked in the best tight end, I'm not going to argue with you. That is fine. It's one of the things that we've noticed with a lot of the comments and a lot of the people who are like, hey, I want to talk into an echo chamber. I want to take Brock Bowers in the first round. If you were that person, if you are convinced that you should take Brock Bowers in the first round, do not let me talk you out of that. Don't let anybody talk you out of that. Draft your own team. I'm just telling you that my strategy is to wait a little bit. And a big reason why is what we're going to see right here in tier 2. So Sam, if we can bring up tier 2 and start look at these names. Look at these guys who are there. George Kittle's there. Mark Andrews is there. Everybody was giving up on Mark Andrews last season. Evan Ingram is in for a monster year. Sam Laporta, David Njoku, and TJ Hawkinson. Of these players, and I love George Kittle. Everybody knows that my favorite non-bear in the NFL is George Kittle, who I absolutely love. But I'm going to go for Evan Ingram this year. I'm telling you right now, this Denver Broncos offense was searching for a tight end, like absolutely needed a tight end during the offseason. You know, you started talking about the draft before we got into free agency. And the Broncos, to me, were one of those teams that really would have taken a long look at Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland. Neither one of those guys have made this list right now. I still think that George Kittle is so close to being a tier 1 guy. But I feel like, again, as we were talking about with the wide receivers yesterday, where we had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase is the first tier, and then we went, there needs to be a 1.5 tier, like a tier 1, a tier 1.02, then a tier 2, something like that, because George Kittle is so close. And again, it wouldn't shock me if George Kittle ends up as the tight end 1 this season. So it's really not that far of a drop, and why I'm really comfortable allowing Brock Bowers and Trey McBride to go in the first 2 rounds, because I know if George Kittle's there, I'm in. If Mark Andrews is there, and as I'm looking at this right now, I think Mark Andrews is going to be a lot lower on people's list than I have him here. But I do, when you look at this at NFL.com, don't be shocked when you go to NFL.com on Monday or Tuesday. Well, I think it'll be next Thursday. And you're like, hey, Rank now has Evan Ingram at number 4. Like, it's that close to where you can flip-flop them. I feel really comfortable with those guys. I think that could almost, again, be a in-between tier 1 and tier 2, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Evan Ingram. I think those 3 guys separate themselves, and it's probably worth noting that. And then you get to Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta, again, I'm curious as to what happens offensively with the Detroit Lions. It's hard to look at what was going on with Ben Johnson and what that Lions team was able to accomplish. But you're looking at a guy who's probably going to be the 3rd most targeted player in that offense. I think he ends up drawing more targets than Jamison Williams. I think Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown end up being the guys there. However, I think that Sam Laporta is still somebody like, hey, you know what? If I'm sitting there, we got into round 5, round 6, and like, oh, okay, he's still there, fine. David Njoku, who last season I think was a little bit of a disappointment. As weird as it is to say, I'm so excited. I hope Joe Flacco wins that job. If Joe Flacco wins that job, I'm going back. Njoku and Flacco to the moon. Like, I'm in. And of course, TJ Hawkinson, a lot of ability. Love what he's able to do. And so I'm very comfortable with these guys. And we can even take it a step further. Let's go on to tier 3, because this is where, we're looking at 3, we're talking about 8 guys right now. So if these 8 off board, then we're going to be in a situation where, like, okay, we've waited on a tight end. We probably don't need to draft one until super late at this point. Some people might want to double up on tight ends, and that's fine. Let them, because we've got a lot of names right here in tier 3. And now I see the comments. Did you forget? I did not forget Travis Kelce. Thank you for asking. Yes. No, I appreciate everybody's concern. really, really worried that I had just forgotten to put Travis Kelce on this list. No, I think it's time to be realistic. And it's time to really look at this rationally, that Travis Kelce is not the consistent fantasy performer that we thought he was going to be. And I truly believe that this will be a situation where if somebody ends up with whatever, you end up with a tight end, if you get far enough into your drafts and you're like, you know what, just in case, like what if Travis Kelce does have a bounce back season? I understand it. And I'm not here to talk you out of it, but I do believe that it's time to look at Travis Kelce as somebody that we can allow to walk away. And if I wish I had my stats up. I know I should have thought about this a little bit more. Well, we don't need the stats. We lived it last year. We know that Travis Kelce had his moments, but he's not the Travis Kelce of old. And outside of the name recognition, there would be no reason. If you looked at a blind resume of Travis Kelce, you would not be compelled to draft him at all. Not at all. But I mean, like, you would not be compelled to have him in the top 8 because other tight ends were catching touchdowns in that offense. We're seeing a couple of wide receivers starting to take a step forward. Travis Kelce is a good player, and he'll have big moments for the Kansas City Chiefs this season. But as far as Travis Kelce being a tight end that you absolutely have to draft, it's not there anymore. It's just not. That's just not his part. That's just not part of his career. We can love him, but we don't have to draft him, and that's just part of the realization in sports is that sometimes these players they get a little older, and it's time to move on. Tucker Kraft, I hate to say this, and that's a good option. You know, one of the things with the Green Bay Packers of not having truly elite level players at the wide receiver position means that there's a lot of opportunity for Tucker Kraft to go out there and really do his thing, really be a threat near the goal line. I honestly like Tucker Kraft a lot. I don't want him because I don't want Green Bay Packers on my team. But at the same time, Tucker Kraft is got a lot of ability, and I would go with him. Again, if I'm missing out on the tight ends, and I'm not gonna overdraft tight ends unless the scoring system is weighted for the position. I'm not going to do it. And by the way, I know a lot of people might just be joining right now. You're like, what's going on here? We've separated our tight ends into tiers. Brock Bowers, Trey McBride being the first 2 guys off the board. I don't think there's any. I'm not setting the world ablaze. But we're waiting on those guys. I will not talk you out of it if you want to do it. But at the same time, I'm not going to do it myself. I'm very happy to get George Kittle, Mark Andrews, or Evan Ingram. I think those guys are a little bit of tier 2. I think they're different tier 2 guys than the other 3 names on that list. But really, I'm looking at tier 3. And if I've sat there and if I'm in a 10-team league or a 12-team league and you're like, all right, well, we missed out on tight end, I'm fine. And if I end up with Tucker Kraft, if I end up with Dalton Kincaid, there's still a part of me that looks at Dalton Kincaid and you think about the pass catching situation for the Buffalo Bills, you know, Khalil Shakur, Keon Coleman, you're like, does Dalton Kincaid ever become the guy that we've expected him to be over the last number of seasons? Like, we've all talked about him. We all thought, like, I know there's people that go, like, it wasn't me. I never, okay, you were very smart. You never fell under the spell of the Dalton Kincaid situation. However, for those of us who did, it's still not out of the realm of possibility that Dalton Kincaid ends up being that dude that we've wanted him to be. When you look at the early seasons of Travis Kelce was not like a year 1 superstar. He's getting 500 fantasy points. No, it took him some time to get acclimated. And I know it's a cliche to say it at this point, but when you talk to NFL personnel, they will tell you the most difficult position to learn in the league is actually tight end, because you have to learn the route tree of a wide receiver and the blocking protections of a lineman. You are literally learning 2 positions, which is why it's so difficult for these tight ends. Like, when we see one of these tight ends pop, early on, like we should sit there and embrace it and be like, all right, wow, this is unexpected. So it's one of those things. I'm not giving up on Dalton Kincaid, and if I need to wait, I'm fine. Jake Ferguson will be good for the Dallas Cowboys. Opportunity, even with George Pickens there. Again, Jake Ferguson, these tight ends do their work underneath, and I think that, having George Pickens there could open it up for him. Jonnu Smith coming off a monster year. Don't chase the fantasy points with him. It'll be interesting to see what happens between him and Aaron Rodgers now that he is a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. However, I'm not going to go there. Dallas Goedert, interesting player. Cole Kmet, we talked about this with the Bears wide receivers or pass catchers, is like, there's just so many dudes now. Like it is one of those situations where you look at DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, DeAndre Swift. If you missed the chat that I had with Laquan Jones talking about DeAndre Swift this season, he had 70 catches the last time he was with Ben Johnson. So there is a real opportunity that DeAndre Swift becomes the number 3 pass catcher in that offense. And that's not even to talk about Colston Loveland, Luther Burden III coming in there, also taking opportunities away from Cole Kmet. So Cole Kmet will catch touchdowns. Odds are you won't be starting him the week that he does. It's just one of those things with these players. And so you got to be very careful with that. Now, for those, I know what you're thinking. I know you were shocked that it was so long for Travis Kelce. What about my other player? I don't think that there is anybody in the fantasy community that has been connected to Kyle Pitts more than me. So let's bring it up. If we can bring up tier 4, where is Kyle Pitts? And there he is right there at tight end 18. Obviously, Tyler Warren is the first rookie tight end that we see. Opportunity. I love Colston Loveland, who I have slotted in there at 24, but the path for points for Tyler Warren is a lot easier than it is for Colston Loveland. 4 years down the road, I think Colston Loveland's going to end up being the guy. Right now, can't do it. Kyle Pitts, though. What are we doing here? Everybody's like, oh, rank. I know. I see you. Oh, rank. Am I trying to jinx him? Maybe this is a strategy for me. Maybe this is the year of doing the opposite, of trying to pretend like when you were courting the person that you are with right now. Think about it like you wanted to play it cool and be like, all right, like I don't need, like I can go out and do my own thing. I think that's what we have to do with Kyle Pitts. It's been the pit. It's been a pit of despair. But this is really one of those situations where, yeah, we got to play it cool. Like, all right, Kyle Pitts, I'm not calling you then. We're ghosting Kyle Pitts to the point we need Kyle Pitts to reach out to us. We need Kyle Pitts to be like, hey, you up? Like, I don't know. Like, you've left me hanging so many times, Kyle Pitts. I can't trust you to go out there and do the things that you need to do to be a tried and true startable fantasy tight end. I'm not going to do the thing like, hey, look at what he did with Michael Penix. Michael Penix loved Drake London. Like we talked about this, Laquan and we talked about Drake London last year and being a stud with Michael Penix. That's the guy that we want. We saw Darnell Mooney, Bijan Robinson. It's now getting to a point where Kyle Pitts really isn't a top option. Where you look at Tyler Warren, I know he's got Michael Pittman there and Josh Downs and some of the other guys. But at the same time, Kyle Pitts, until we see it, 1,000 receiving yards during his rookie season and then wasn't heard from again. So for me, I'm going to let that go. Will I end up with him on one of my rosters? Like, you know that I will. Like, I'm not going to sit here in front. I really fear for the team. Like, I feel like I'm going to get into this situation where I have Travis Kelce and Kyle Pitts just back to back. It's my two tight ends and just being frustrated. I don't want to do that to myself. Actually, you know what? Don't do that. I'll guarantee you I won't do that. If I end up with Travis Kelce on a team, I will not take Kyle Pitts because I know that'll be a situation where I don't want to deal with that. And so Cade Otton is another one. I think Tampa Bay's done a really nice job. They drafted another wide receiver out of Ohio State this season. So for me, I think there's a lot of options that Cade Otton is one of those guys. Like, though there might be weeks where Cade Otton could be the guy, but it's not going to be me. Oh, Mason Taylor. Are we going to go with Mason Taylor? Oh, man, real fun, real interesting. But there you are. Those are the tight end tiers. But listen, we're going to wrap up a great week of Fantasy Island. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Again, I know we talked about it. A lot of you stopping by, checking it out. If you're not familiar with this show, the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank typically is a show about the Chicago Bears. We're going to be back next Wednesday. We'll be back Wednesday with Take It to the Rank. We'll have Greg Braggs on with us. We'll be talking some Chicago Bears stuff as we get closer to training camp. It's just a few days away now. We saw that some of the tickets were distributed. A lot of people are excited for training camp with the Chicago Bears. Can't wait to really dig in and start seeing what this offense and what this team is going to look like. And similarly, Fantasy Island is not going away. We will continue to bring you some fantasy coverage. But what I would like to focus on in the next couple of weeks, we will make an announcement of when Fantasy Island will return. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to huddle up right after this show and try to figure out a time. If I can guess, I'm thinking 7:00 Eastern on Monday. So put that down. That when we do that, we will be doing that live. That'll be all your questions. I won't even prepare a rundown. I will just sit here because I know that I wasn't doing a great job of acknowledging your questions, and I understand. I appreciate everybody who is participating and doing that, but we'll do that on Monday. I'm just going to call it right now, Monday, 7:00, and then we'll also start putting it on some of the other channels. If you follow me on Instagram or TikTok or anything like that, go find those. There will be some opportunities where I just pop in and do lives, trying to get that schedule ready to go. So appreciate everybody being here. I know we threw this at you, and it's so great of you guys to be here. So thank you so much. Good luck to everybody who is going out and doing one of the live events for the Scott Fish Bowl. I will be there Saturday in Los Angeles. So if you're a part of the Scott Fish Bowl Los Angeles, make sure you come up and say hello. We'll talk about this. I'll recap some of my picks next week too as we go through that. So for Laquan, who flaked on us, it's fine. Listen, I got it. In any event, thank you so much for being here. And Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time.